If you want to solve a problem, you have to look at where the issue first began. You are listening to Above the Divide with Paula Danielle. The church has been divided for too long, and we're here to help us come together. This is season 1, where we're talking about having a faithful posture in a politically hostile world. Now, let's jump into today's show and continue to rise above the divide. Welcome to the first episode of Above the Divide. I'm Paula Danielle, and I'm so excited about this new journey that we're on together and looking at the ways that the church has been divided and how we can live above those fractures. Today is just going to be us. Normally on Above the Divide, we'll have some guests, but I thought it would be good for this first episode to really talk about why this is important and, frankly, why I care. So a little bit about me. Yes, I am 43 years old, but I came to know Jesus at 5 years old. That means I have been walking with God for 38 years. At the age of 8, I started leading in ministry. And yep, that is young. But what that does when you start leading at that age is you grow up seeing all the different, and can I just say petty ways that the church will argue with herself. I mean, we will argue over things that nobody else is thinking about. And I think that goes back to really how the American church was formed. We have to go back to all the reasons why people first came over here from England. We have to go back to why people were running from the Church of England because they felt mistreated and misused, and they wanted some autonomy over their own lives. They wanted to have the privilege of dictating their own destiny. They wanted to have the right to be able to forge their own paths. Unfortunately, when people suffer trauma and they do not deal with that trauma, we often inflict that pain on other people. So instead of individuals coming from England and actually making a life here with the indigenous people, they came here and they ravaged the land, they annihilated indigenous tribes, and they gave birth to chattel slavery. We have pain that gave birth to more pain in order to usurp and find their own power. I think we've seen that over and over and over and over again in the church. Pain that gives birth to more pain in order to gain power. We cannot address why Sunday continues to be the most segregated hour of the week until we address how that came to be. We have to stop and think before we gloss over and say everybody come together. Can we deal with the division and how it arose? See, Richard Allen and Absalom Jones and the individuals that would leave with them to form the African Methodist Episcopal Church, all they were really trying to do was just worship in the church that was on the plantation in which they lived. When they were grabbed up while they were praying, because they were praying on the floor too close to other white parishioners, and the Black church was born. The Black church was born out of a need for dignity, out of a necessity to be recognized as 100% human beings. And as we are in the year 2024, we still see African Americans in this country being treated than less than a full human being. I wish I could say that was the only place of divide in the church. I wish I could say that was the only reason, but that we are still separate. But if we look at the different ways we treat men and women, we see another area of divide. See, we're happy to stand against Paul and get amnesia when Paul says that I'd rather you be single. Instead, we push marriage like it is the fourth person of the Trinity, like it is a necessity on the road to salvation. And we will refuse to let people serve in the kingdom if they're not married because single is often not good enough. But we don't treat Paul the same way, taking in those contextual clues when it comes to whether or not women can serve in pastoral positions, when it comes to whether or not women can preach the word of God. Now, forget the fact that the only person who carried the word of God was a woman, but we often won't submit to one when it comes to her carrying the word of God on a Sunday morning. Those are just two examples. When it comes to class, we see it. When it comes to sexuality, we see it. When it comes to how we feel about contemplation versus charismatic displays of faith. We see it. There are divides all over the body. And I don't know about you, but I'm tired of seeing it. See, the fact of the matter is, over and over and over again, Jesus asks us to be one. In John chapter 17, that's his last prayer, is that the church would be one, just as he and the Father are one. And when the New Testament church started coming together with all of their divisions and all of their fractions, that was a lot of the discussion between Peter and Paul and James and the other disciples, the other apostles. That was the reason for the whole council at Jerusalem, is to figure out how we can be one. When Paul wrote the letter to the Ephesians, the first 3 chapters are about what it means to follow God. What does it mean to be a follower of Jesus? But the last 3 chapters is about how we do that. The first part of that, in Ephesians chapter 4, Paul says to walk worthy of the calling to which you have been called. And he lists a series of characteristics that will help us keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. At the end of the day, it is impossible to say we love God and then hate our neighbor. But the American church has been great in giving us reasons to do just that. I'm looking forward to starting this podcast with you all. I'm looking forward to the guests that we're going to have, because we're going to dive in and talk about these areas of division. Now, if you know me, if you've been following me on Instagram, TikTok, any of my channels, YouTube, listen, you know I don't swim in the shallow end of nothing. So we're going to go ahead and dive into the deep end of the pool with our first season. We're going to talk about our posture in a hostile political season. We're not talking about political issues, but we're talking about how we as the church show up. What does it look like to be in relationship with somebody you disagree with? What does it look like to vote on a topic that is in the best interest of your neighbor, even if that means, God forbid, you have to give up something? We're going to be talking about how justice and righteousness are 2 sides of the same coin. We're going to talk about whether or not politics and partisanship belong in the pulpit, and we're just going to deal with it, because nothing that is covered up can ever be healed. Y'all, I keep smiling because I'm excited. I'm excited about this new endeavor, Above the Divide, and I'm excited about this first season. Make sure to join us every Tuesday on all your podcast channels, and for YouTube if you want video, as we discuss how we pursue a faithful posture in a hostile political environment as we attempt to live above the divide. Y'all have a good day. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Above the Divide. Above the Divide is sponsored by Cohesion, a church creating community, unifying the body, and equipping its people. If this content is helpful, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone else. We look forward to being together again on Tuesday for our next episode. Have a great week.